December 24, 1857, Middle Tennessee. The air is cold, sharp enough to split skin. The ground is iron with frost. The sky is thick with clouds that swallow the stars whole. It is Christmas Eve. Families across the land are gathered, singing, feasting, praying. Candles burn, choirs lift voices. Children unwrap small gifts. But not here. Not on this plantation. Not in this house. Benjamin. That was the name of the slave. Benjamin, who carried his history in silence. Benjamin, whose back spoke in scars louder than sermons. Benjamin, who walked with steady steps, never rushing, never stumbling. Eyes always lowered. He was 26 years old. Broad-shouldered, 6 feet tall. His hands were thick with calluses from years of chopping wood and hauling water. His skin was dark and gleamed with sweat even in winter's chill. His eyes were deep, brown, unreadable, but behind them memory burned. The Whitfield plantation was not the largest in Tennessee, but it was rich enough. White fences, cotton fields now bare from harvest, smoke curling from chimneys. The big house stood tall, painted white, windows trimmed with green shutters. At its steps a wreath of pine branches hung. Christmas cheer for those inside, but for those in the slave quarters, Christmas meant nothing but hunger and labor. Benjamin belonged to Mary Whitfield, mistress of the house. Her husband traveled often, selling cotton, buying land. Mary ruled the home, and she ruled with cruelty disguised as refinement. She had 4 children. Samuel, aged 12, with a cruel smirk that mimicked his father's. Rebecca, aged 10, sharp-tongued and spoiled. Charles, aged 7, mischievous in ways that cut deep. And little Anna, just 4, the baby of the house, already learning to command. They laughed at Benjamin. They ordered him as if their blood entitled them. Samuel threw food scraps at him when Mary wasn't looking. Rebecca shouted his name like a whip. Charles mocked his voice. Anna, sweet in appearance, copied her mother's sharp tone. Benjamin, faster! Mary herself believed discipline was training. She corrected her children when they were clumsy with their manners, but never when they were cruel to slaves. Cruelty to her was natural. Benjamin felt every insult, but he never showed it. He swallowed silence. He bowed his head. He carried wood, polished silver, scrubbed floors, cleaned boots. His name was spoken 100 times a day, always as command. But Benjamin remembered his real name. He remembered who had given it, his mother, Ruth. She whispered it into his ear when he was small, saying, "Benjamin, it means son of the right hand. It means strength." Ruth was gone now. She died in the fields when Benjamin was barely grown, whipped until her body gave out, buried without a marker. But he remembered her voice. He remembered her hands. He remembered the hymn she sang in the dark. He remembered others too. His brother Isaac, sold downriver 2 winters before. Isaac's cry still echoed in Benjamin's skull, the sound of chains rattling as a wagon carried him away. His sister Eliza, taken into another house, only 15. Benjamin had heard whispers of what the master there did to young girls. He never spoke of it, but he burned inside. Names, faces, Ruth, Isaac, Eliza. He carried them like stones. He repeated them silently over and over, while his hands worked and his mouth stayed shut. The house on Christmas Eve smelled of roasted ham, cinnamon, sweetbread, cider. The sound of children's laughter mixed with the clink of forks against china. A fire crackled in the hearth. Stockings hung on the mantel. Mary Whitfield sat in her parlor, sewing ribbons for her daughter's hair. And Benjamin stoked the fire, polished the candlesticks, washed the plates. He moved silently, always within reach but never seen. The axe leaned against the woodpile outside. The kitchen knife rested by the bread. Tools, they thought, harmless. But Benjamin's silence was sharpening. His patience was grinding down to nothing. Not tonight, he thought. Not on this Christmas. He didn't cry. He didn't shake. He just remembered. He remembered every lash, every scream, every face lost to chains and death. The plantation was quiet outside, snow beginning to fall. Inside, the Whitfields sang carols. But Benjamin was elsewhere, in memory, in fire, in silence. And silence is not obedience. Silence is waiting. Silence is sharpening. The house had never been so heavy, not because of the weather, but because of the storm inside one man. Benjamin was underestimated. He was overlooked. He was a shadow. But shadows lengthen. Shadows deepen. Shadows swallow the light. On this Christmas Eve, 1857, Benjamin's silence would end. This is his story. The night presses closer. The snow outside falls thicker, smothering the land in silence. But Benjamin's silence is louder. Inside him, memory swells like a river after storm. To understand what happens on this Christmas Eve, you must first walk with him through the past. You must see the wounds that never closed. You must hear the promises broken, the names stolen, the chains clattering in his ears. Benjamin was born on this soil, born into Tennessee's red dirt, born under the roof of the Whitfield plantation, born with chains already on his life. His mother, Ruth, was the one who caught him when he came screaming into the world. She wiped his skin clean with rough hands, whispering, "Benjamin, that is your name. Never forget it." Ruth was not allowed to be tender often, but in stolen moments she sang. Her voice carried over the fields at dusk, low and trembling. Hymns about Jordan's river, about freedom, about heaven. For Benjamin, her song was the only softness. His father he never knew. They said he was sold before Benjamin's first memory formed. A shadow, a name half remembered. His father's absence was its own wound. Childhood for Benjamin was not play. Childhood was carrying buckets heavier than his arms, sweeping floors, running when called. By 7, he could balance a tray of china. By 9, he learned to chop wood straight and clean. By 12, he had the marks of whips across his back, scars from punishment meant for lessons. And always, Ruth whispered, "Keep your head down, survive, remember your name." He did. He remembered. But remembering did not save those he loved. There was Isaac, his younger brother by 2 years. They slept side by side in the slave quarters, sharing one thin blanket. Isaac laughed often, too often. Even in darkness, he found ways to tease to make Benjamin smile. But laughter was dangerous. Overseers hated joy. One winter, Isaac was caught sneaking a biscuit from the kitchen. The master's rage was swift. The auction was swifter. Benjamin still sees it, Isaac on the block crying, "Ben, Ben!" His wrists bound, chains clinking, the whip striking when he resisted, and then gone. Sold down the river to Mississippi, a place from which no word ever returned. Isaac's laughter silenced. Isaac's name became an echo. Then Eliza, Benjamin's sister, 15, slim with eyes like Ruth's. She worked in the house, polishing mirrors, sweeping floors. The mistress praised her for her light steps. The master praised her for her beauty, too much. One night she was called into the parlor. She did not come back until dawn. She never spoke of it. But she walked differently. She stopped singing. She looked at the ground even when no one was watching. Benjamin asked her once, "Eliza, are you hurt?" She only said, "Don't ask. Don't ask, Ben." A month later, she was sent away to another estate as a gift. Benjamin never saw her again. He only heard whispers of what happens to girls of 15 in houses like that. Isaac gone. Eliza gone. Ruth beaten until her body gave out one hot summer, collapsing in the cotton rows. Benjamin begged to bury her proper with a prayer. Mary Whitfield refused. "Dig a hole by the field," she ordered. No stone, no marker, only dirt, but Benjamin remembered. He repeated their names when he lay down at night. Ruth, Isaac, Eliza, like prayers, like drum beats, like fire. And through it all he obeyed. He worked, he kept his silence. Because Ruth's last words were, "Keep your head low, survive." But survival was not peace. Survival was torment. Every insult from Samuel, every command from Rebecca, every shove from Charles, every cold order from Mary was not just a moment, it was a reminder. A reminder of Ruth in the fields, of Isaac on the auction block, of Eliza walking out of the parlor with her eyes gone dim. Benjamin carried them in his chest. He carried them in his scars. The whip was not just leather. It was memory carved into flesh. The Whitfields celebrated Christmas with grand feasts. To them it was a season of joy, of gifts, of plenty. To Benjamin, it was a season of mockery. He remembered his mother singing carols in whispers, not around a tree but over a pot of thin stew. He remembered Isaac wishing once for a toy and being beaten for daring to want. He remembered Eliza weeping when she saw stockings hung by the fireplace, knowing she would never be allowed to touch one. Christmas to Benjamin was proof. Proof that their God was not his. Proof that their joy was built on stolen labor. Proof that silence could not heal wounds. Every winter deepened his resentment. Every laugh of the children struck like a lash. Every carol was a knife in the ribs. But still he endured. Until one night, 2 years before this Christmas, Benjamin himself was whipped near to death. The reason was trivial. A dish dropped, shattered on the floor. Mary Whitfield's hand pointed at him, and the overseer's whip fell 30 times. His back split open, blood soaking his shirt. He did not scream. He did not cry. He just remembered. When the beating ended, Mary said coldly, "Maybe that will teach you care." But it taught him something else. It taught him silence was not safety. It taught him memory was not enough. It taught him that one day his silence must break. He healed. The scars thickened. His body survived. But his heart changed. He began to watch. He began to measure. He began to mark the weight of the axe, the sharpness of the kitchen knives, the timing of footsteps in the hall. Not for rebellion, not yet. But for possibility. They called it obedience, but it was really study. They called it patience, but it was really waiting. They called it silence, but it was really fire smoldering under ash. One night when he could not sleep, Benjamin whispered aloud, "One for Ruth, one for Isaac, one for Eliza." The words tasted like iron, like blood, like promise. And in that whisper, the future was born. The winter of 1857 settled hard on Tennessee. The frost did not melt even at noon. The fields lay bare, stripped after harvest, cotton stalks standing like bones against the pale earth. The air stung the lungs. The sky hung low and gray. On the Whitfield plantation, Christmas preparations filled the big house. Baskets of food brought in, candles polished, silver arranged, ribbons tied. The children chatted about gifts, dolls, books, boots. Mary Whitfield counted jars of preserves, her lips tight, her eyes sharp. And Benjamin moved silently, carrying, polishing, chopping wood. Always chopping wood. The axe was his companion, its handle smooth from years of use, its blade worn but steady. He split logs in rhythm, crack, 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 each sound ringing through the cold air. But inside him, another rhythm beat. Ruth, Isaac, Eliza. The breaking point did not come like thunder. It came like a whisper, a series of small cuts that bled into one wound too deep to close. That week, Samuel, the eldest boy, cornered Benjamin by the stables. Samuel, 12 years old but already cruel, held a switch in his hand. He smirked. "You're too slow, Benjamin. Mama says you're dumb as a mule." He struck Benjamin across the arm with the switch, hard, laughing. Rebecca joined him. "Say thank you, Benjamin," she mocked, echoing her mother's tone. Benjamin said nothing. His silence was not obedience. It was calculation. That night, as he lay in the quarters, the lash of the switch burned on his skin. Not because it hurt, but because it was a child's hand raised in cruelty learned from its mother. A child's hand already trained in mastery, already tasting the power of domination. Benjamin realized then, cruelty was not passing, it was inheritance. Samuel would grow into his father. Rebecca would grow into her mother. Charles and Anna would follow. The cycle would never end, unless it ended in him. The next day, Benjamin was ordered to polish the knives for the Christmas feast. The silver gleamed under his rag. He ran his thumb along the edge, sharp, too sharp for carving ham alone. He held it a little longer than necessary, and in that small pause, something shifted. The knife wasn't for meat. It wasn't for bread. It was for memory. Mary Whitfield's voice cut the silence. "Benjamin, quicker!" He placed the knife down gently, but in his mind it had already found another purpose. That evening he was ordered to haul wood inside for the fire. The axe leaned against the pile. His hands curled around the handle, heavy, familiar, balanced, not just for wood. Never just for wood. He carried it inside. His eyes caught the children laughing by the fire, stockings waiting for gifts. Gifts bought by his labor, gifts bought by Ruth's broken back, Isaac's chains, Eliza's silence. Something hot rose in him. Not grief, no, grief had burned away long ago. Not fear. Fear had been whipped out of him. It was something else, something hard. Resolve. Later that night he sat awake in the quarters, staring into darkness. Around him other slaves slept. Their breathing was slow, heavy with exhaustion. He alone did not close his eyes. He whispered again, "One for Ruth, one for Isaac, one for Eliza." But this time he added more, "One for me." The decision was no longer a ghost. It was flesh. It was fire. Christmas Eve arrived. The house buzzed with activity. Mary ordered decorations placed, food prepared, cider warmed. The children shrieked with excitement. Outside, snow fell in soft flakes, muting the world. Inside, heat and laughter swelled. Benjamin worked, silent as ever. But his silence was different now. He was not enduring. He was preparing. Every step he took, he marked the distance between rooms. Every door he passed, he noted the hinges. Every object he touched, he weighed for use. The kitchen knife, the axe, the poker by the fire, tools to them, weapons to him. At noon, Samuel tripped him deliberately, sending a tray of plates crashing. Mary's fury lashed out immediately. "Benjamin! Fool! Can you do nothing right?" The back of her hand struck his cheek. The children laughed. He didn't cry. He didn't protest. He only looked at her. One glance, one long heavy glance, and then he lowered his eyes. But the seed was grown now. No whip, no order, no slap could uproot it. That night, as the house settled, as the candles burned low, Benjamin sharpened, slowly, patiently. The whetstone hissed as metal kissed stone. Sparks danced. Each scrape was a heartbeat. Each spark was a soul, Ruth, Isaac, Eliza himself. The breaking point had arrived. He was no longer a servant. He was no longer a shadow. He was no longer silence. He was the storm. And when midnight came, Christmas would not bring peace. It would bring reckoning. Midnight, December 24th, 1857. Christmas Eve. The house breathes heavy with warmth. The fire roars in the hearth, spitting embers. The scent of roasted ham and cinnamon still lingers in the air. Candles gutter in their holders, wax dripping slow. Upstairs, children sleep in feather beds, their stockings waiting. Mary Whitfield lies in her chamber, the blanket pulled to her chin, her face calm in slumber. But Benjamin does not sleep. He rises from his cot in the quarters, body rigid, mind sharpened to a single edge. Snowflakes whisper against the windows. Silence folds over the plantation, the kind of silence that comes before thunder. He moves quietly, practiced. His feet know every board that creaks, every hinge that groans. He crosses the yard, the cold biting, but he does not shiver. His breath clouds in the dark, but his eyes are steady. The axe waits by the woodpile. He lifts it. Heavy, balanced, a tool, they said, for wood. But tonight it is not for wood. Tonight it is for Ruth. Tonight it is for Isaac. Tonight it is for Eliza. Tonight it is for Benjamin. The kitchen door opens easily. He has opened it 1,000 times. Inside, the house hums with the faint crackle of the fire. Shadows stretch long. The smell of pine mixes with blood memory. He takes the knife too, slips it from its place near the bread. Cold steel, sharp edge. Not for food. Not anymore. He moves up the stairs. Each step deliberate, each step heavy with history. He remembers lashes, screams, auctions. He remembers Samuel's smirk, Rebecca's mocking tone, Charles's jeers, Anna's mimicry, Mary's hand striking his face. Every step is a name. Every step is a wound. Every step is a drumbeat. First Mary. He enters her chamber. Candlelight flickers low. She sleeps, face soft, unaware. For once she does not command, does not scold. But Benjamin remembers every order, every lash she demanded, every silence she forced on him. He raises the axe. He doesn't cry. He doesn't shake. He just brings it down. The blade splits the quiet with a sound that is not sound, it is rupture. Blood spatters across white sheets. Mary Whitfield gasps awake. Too late. Her hand reaching up as if command could still save her. But the axe falls again, and again, and again. Not because of the dish dropped. Not because of the slap. But because of Ruth, because of Isaac, because of Eliza. Mary Whitfield's cries are swallowed by the house. The axe silences her. The mattress soaks red. The mistress who believed cruelty was training is gone, her face split by the very tool she believed belonged only in a slave's hands. Benjamin does not pause. He turns, he walks. His silence is now louder than screams. Next, Samuel. The boy sleeps in his bed, mouth open, one hand clutching a toy soldier. 12 years old, but already cruel. Already learning to wield power like a whip. Already striking with switches. Already smirking with ownership. Benjamin watches him for a moment. Watches the innocence of sleep that is not innocence at all. He whispers, "One for Isaac." The knife flashes. Samuel's eyes open wide, confusion flooding, then fear, then nothing. The toy soldier falls to the floor, blood spreading across sheets. The boy who laughed at Benjamin's pain meets silence. Next, Rebecca, 10 years old. Hair braided neat, ribbons waiting for Christmas morning. She lies curled under her quilt, dreaming perhaps of gifts. Benjamin remembers her voice, mocking, cruel, echoing her mother. He whispers, "One for Eliza." The axe falls. Rebecca's dream ends in crimson. Her voice, that whip of a child, is silenced forever. Next child's fire. 7. Mischievous, sharp, always quick to jeer. Benjamin's eyes narrow. This one would grow, would become another master, another whip. He whispers, "One for Ruth." The knife pierces. Charles shudders once, then stills. The child who mocked is no more. And then Anna, 4 years old. The smallest, the one with curls, the one with sweetness painted over cruelty not yet ripened. She copied her mother's tone, saying, "Benjamin, hurry." A child's voice, but already command, already inheritance. Benjamin stands over her bed. He grips the knife. For a moment he hesitates, not because of mercy. Mercy burned away long ago, but because of memory. He sees Isaac at 4. He sees Eliza at 4. He sees himself once, a boy who knew nothing but songs at dusk. But then he remembers Ruth collapsing in the fields. He remembers Isaac dragged in chains. He remembers Eliza walking out of the parlor, her eyes hollow. He whispers, "One for me." The blade falls. Anna's breath ends. The last child of Mary Whitfield is gone. The house is silent now. Silent but heavy, thick with the smell of iron and fire. Blood stains sheets, floors, Benjamin's hands. He breathes slow. He does not shake. He does not cry. He just remembers. He walks back through the halls. The stockings hang empty. The gifts lie unopened. The fire still crackles unaware. The house that believed itself eternal is now marked. One for Ruth, one for Isaac, one for Eliza, one for Benjamin. The reckoning is done. But silence is not the end. The silence will speak, the blood will speak, and the world will hear. Christmas morning, December 25th, 1857. The snow has thickened overnight, laying a white shroud across the Whitfield plantation. Icicles hang from the eaves. The air is still sharp, unbroken by laughter or carols. The great house that should be alive with celebration stands strangely silent, its chimneys smoking faintly, its windows dim. In the slave quarters, whispers have already begun. Children notice the absence of their mistress's bell. The field hands glance at one another uneasy. No commands, no footsteps, no voices from the big house. Only stillness. Stillness that feels unnatural. It is young Caleb, the stable boy, who first dares to step inside. He pushes the kitchen door, calling softly, "Mrs.?" "Mr. Samuel." The smell hits him before the sight. Metallic, sour, unmistakable. His stomach lurches, but his legs carry him forward. Into the hall. Up the stairs. His eyes widen. His breath falters. The screams begin. Others rush in. The overseer, roused from his cabin. 2 neighbors come early with greetings. They follow the sound of Caleb's terror. And then they too fall silent, their faces pale, their mouths gaping. The Whitfield house has become a slaughterhouse. Mary Whitfield lies torn open in her bed, blood soaked through mattress and gown. Her face nearly unrecognizable. The children are strewn across their rooms, sheets crimson, toys abandoned in horror. Samuel's toy soldier lies in a pool of his blood. Rebecca's ribbon has turned dark. Charles's small hand dangles limp. Anna's curls are matted, her stocking still pinned at the mantel, waiting for gifts that will never come. The overseer staggers back, clutching the wall. "Lord have mercy," he breathes, his voice cracking. One neighbor crosses himself furiously. Another vomits on the stairs. Word spreads faster than fire. By noon, the entire county knows. The Whitfields are dead. The tale grows with every telling. Some say bandits did it, slipping in under cover of night. Others whisper of rival planters, jealous and vengeful. But among the enslaved, the whispers carry a different name, a name spoken low with fear and awe: Benjamin. For Benjamin is gone. His cot in the quarters is empty, his few belongings vanished. No one saw him at dawn, no one saw him in the fields. Some swear they heard footsteps in the snow before dawn. leading away into the trees. Others claim they saw a shadow slipping through the woods. The overseer wastes no time. He rides to town, coat flapping, face pale. By evening, the sheriff arrives, flanked by deputies. Their boots tramp through the house, their voices low and angry. The scene sickens even hardened men. Done by a madman, one mutters. Not mad, the sheriff replies. His eyes are hard, his jaw clenched. A slave. Mark me. The hunt begins that very night. They drag hounds from their kennels, muzzles frothing, eager for scent. They march through the woods, lanterns bobbing, rifles gleaming. Every snapping twig makes a deputy's finger twitch on the trigger. The enslaved are questioned harshly. Who knew? Who saw? Who helped? The whip cracks over backs already scarred. But none speak. Some because they truly do not know. Some because silence is safer than truth. Some because deep in their hearts they carry a seed of grim satisfaction. For though horror grips them, though terror stirs in their bellies, another feeling lies buried beneath. A dark, quiet vindication. Someone struck back. Someone broke the chain. Someone dared. Benjamin's name spreads beyond the plantation. Newspapers pick up the story within days. Horrific massacre in Tennessee. Entire family murdered by slave. Columns drip with shock, outrage, fury. They describe Benjamin as a monster, a demon, proof of the dangers of leniency. Editors thunder, this is why control must be absolute. But between the lines, whispers move differently. In taverns, in hidden corners, in fields at night, the story bends. Some say Benjamin was not cruel but righteous, not demon but avenger. His name becomes a warning to masters and a spark to the enslaved. Remember Benjamin, some murmur. He showed them we can bleed them too. The Whitfield plantation becomes a place of dread. The great house, once proud, now reeks of death. The windows are shuttered, the parlor stripped of cheer. Neighbors avoid the lane, horses shying near its gates. The overseer moves about with jumpy eyes, carrying his pistol always. But the hunt does not stop. For weeks, posses scour the woods, dragging in runaways, beating confessions from anyone they can. Rewards are posted. $500 for the capture of Benjamin, dead or alive. Handbills nailed to every post, his name etched in bold. Yet Benjamin remains a ghost. Some claim he fled north, slipping through rivers and forests, vanishing toward freedom. Others insist he joined bands of maroons deep in the swamps. So few whisper he never left at all, that he hides still, watching, waiting, a shadow that haunts every master's dream. For every night after, across Tennessee, planters lie awake listening to the wind at their shutters, to the creak of floorboards, to the silence between breaths, wondering if Benjamin's axe might fall again. Christmas of 1857 is remembered not for joy but for blood, for silence, for the night the Whitfield name ended in crimson, and Benjamin, slave, avenger, fugitive, became more than a man. He became a story, a curse, a warning, a whisper carried on the winter wind. The posters go up before the blood has dried. Handbills nailed to trees, tavern doors, courthouse walls. Ink smeared in haste, letters bold and black. Wanted slave Benjamin, murderer of Mary Whitfield and 4 children. Reward $500 dead or alive. His description spreads with every telling. Tall, scarred on the cheek, eyes dark, quiet. Walks with a slight limp from the fields. The bounty hunters arrive within days. Men hardened by war, by whiskey, by profit. They come with rifles slung across their backs, pistols at their hips, knives at their belts. They come with dogs bred for blood, their howls carrying through the night. And always they come with greed in their eyes. For $500 is more than a year's wage for most. Enough to buy land, enough to buy more slaves, enough to gamble, to drink, to boast, to kill, for the sheriff organizes them into posse, 10 men at a time, lanterns and hounds beating through thickets and hollows. They follow prints in the snow, broken branches, the faintest whiff of smoke. Every shadow becomes Benjamin. Every silence feels like his breath. But Benjamin is not there. In the woods, he moves with ghostly precision. He knows the routes, the streams, the deer trails. He drinks from frozen creeks, eats what he can snare. His axe is gone, buried deep beneath a fallen oak. But in his hand now rests a heavy branch carved into a club. Not for hunting, for defense. He travels by night, wrapping rags around his feet to hide prints, covering himself in mud to mask scent. He doubles back on his own trail, leading the dogs astray. When the hounds howl, he crouches in the underbrush, still as stone, heart beating slow. He does not cry. He does not pray. He only breathes. The land itself seems to help him. Snow falls thick, covering tracks. Streams swell, washing scent away. Owls screech at pursuers, spooking horses. And in the darkness, every lantern becomes a beacon for Benjamin, showing him where they are so he may slip where they are not. But the hunt is merciless. Neighbors join in, rifles in hand, not out of loyalty to the Whitfields, but out of fear. Fear that Benjamin's axe may come for them next. Fear that his defiance might spread like fire through their own quarters. They ride hard, their voices shouting into the night. "Benjamin, show yourself! Come out, you devil!" Their shouts echo through the woods, but Benjamin does not answer. In the quarters, meanwhile, punishment rains down. Men are chained and whipped for imagined silence. Women dragged from cabins, questioned until their voices break. Children forced to point, to swear, to betray, but they know nothing. Still the lash falls. The overseer curses Benjamin's name with every strike. "He's doomed you all." Doomed you. He spits, but still the quarters hold their silence. Because though fear grips them, though they tremble at night, there is also pride, quiet and unspoken. Benjamin dared. Benjamin struck. Benjamin proved that the master bleeds, and that seed cannot be lashed away. Weeks pass. The hunt stretches farther into swamps, across ridges, along the riverbanks. They find traces, ashes of a fire, bones of a rabbit, footprints fading into ice. Always just behind, always too late. Rumors begin to swirl. Some claim Benjamin slipped onto a flatboat and drifted north on the Mississippi, vanishing toward freedom. Others insist he joined the Maroons, those bands of fugitives hiding deep in the swamps, striking and disappearing like smoke. A few whisper he was helped by abolitionists, ferried along the Underground Railroad toward Ohio. But no one knows, and the not knowing gnaws at Tennessee's planters worse than the murders themselves. Because if Benjamin lives, if Benjamin roams free, then none of them sleep safe. His name haunts their nights. His shadow stalks their dreams. One planter refuses to walk his halls without a pistol. Another bolts his doors at sundown, shutters his windows, keeps a lantern burning all night. Churches thunder sermons about obedience, warning slaves of damnation. Patrols double along the roads, muskets at the ready. But the fear remains, because Benjamin is not just a man anymore. He is a symbol. Children in the quarters whisper his story by firelight. Old men murmur his name like a prayer. Mothers hush their infants with songs of Benjamin's courage. "He struck for us," they say in low voices. "One for every lash, one for every tear." And in taverns, white men mutter bitterly. "If one can do it, more will follow," they say. "We must make an example. We must catch him. We must hang him slow." But still Benjamin eludes them. The winter deepens. Food grows scarce. The woods turn silent under frost. But Benjamin endures, his silence harder than hunger, his will sharper than cold. He thinks of Mary Whitfield's face, of Samuel's sneer, of every lash, every order, every humiliation. Memory keeps him warm. Memory keeps him moving. And as the dogs howl once more in the distance, Benjamin presses himself against the earth, breath shallow, eyes unblinking. He does not cry. He does not pray. He only waits because the hunt is endless, and he is not prey, he is proof. Months pass. Winter turns to thaw. The rivers break their ice. Fields soften with mud, buds push through the frost. But Benjamin's shadow lingers still. The Whitfields are long buried, Mary in her Sunday dress, the children in small coffins side by side. The churchyard grass grows again, but the ground feels heavy, cursed. Folks walking by lower their voices, cross themselves. The Whitfield stones are not memorials. They are warnings, and Benjamin's name refuses to die. In Tennessee towns, it is whispered in fear. At courthouse steps, in taverns, at market stalls, white men lean close to mutter, "That's what happens when you give them slack. They remember every lash. One like him could rouse 100. The story grows teeth. Some say he cut Mary Whitfield's throat while singing a hymn. Others swear he scalped the children, left them lined like dolls. None of it true, yet all of it believed. For rumor feeds on fear, and fear needs no proof. Preachers thunder from pulpits, Benjamin is the fruit of disobedience, a serpent raised in our midst. Newspapers print his name in bold, painting him as beast, devil, monster. Every detail twisted, every silence filled with lies. But beyond the master's houses, the story bends another way. In the quarters, Benjamin is not devil. He is deliverer. Old Hannah, bent with age, tells children by the fire, he took 4 for everyone they took from him. She repeats the names Mary Whitfield, Samuel, Rebecca, Charles, Anna, like beads on a rosary, each one a payment. A young man sharpening his hoe mutters, he showed them we ain't made of straw. His voice is low, but his eyes burn. Women rock infants and whisper, Benjamin walked free. Maybe you will too. The story spreads further, carried by mouths, by song, by secret letters. A runaway in Kentucky hears it from a ferryman. One slave killed a whole family, slipped away into the woods. In Ohio, abolitionists pass it along. See what cruelty breeds. Even chains break bloody. The South calls him demon. The enslaved call him proof, and both are right in their way. Because Benjamin is no longer just a man. He is a mirror. Every master sees in him his own fear. Fear of vengeance, fear of justice, fear of the day his own name might be whispered in blood. And every slave sees in him a fragment of freedom, a reminder that the whip can be answered, that silence can break, that even on Christmas Eve the tables can turn. The legend twists with every telling. Some say Benjamin fled north and found Canada, where snow covers his tracks forever. Others swear he joined John Brown's army, sharpening his axe for Harper's Ferry. A few claim he still roams Tennessee's woods, half man, half ghost, watching from shadows, waiting for midnight. Children grow up with the name in their ears. White children warned, obey or Benjamin will get you. Black children comforted, remember Benjamin. Remember he struck. Even songs take root, field chants, rhythmic, rising with the swing of hoes. Benjamin walked by night. Benjamin's hands were red. Benjamin cut the chain, and the masters bled. The overseers hear and lash harder, but the song survives, muttered, hummed, hidden in work and breath. By 1858, his story leaps into pamphlets. Abolitionists seize it, twisting fact into fuel. They print his name alongside whippings, auctions, broken families. What wonder that vengeance came, they ask. What wonder that Christmas rang with blood? For every Southerner who spits his name, a Northerner lifts it as proof. For every planter who curses him, a fugitive whispers thanks. Benjamin is everywhere, yet nowhere. The sheriff of Shelby County confesses, late one night over whiskey, I don't reckon we'll ever find him. His deputy shudders, then he'll never rest. And perhaps that is the truth, because even if Benjamin starved in those woods, even if his bones lie hidden beneath oak roots, even if wolves picked him clean, the story survives. And the story is enough. The Whitfield plantation never recovers. Fields go untended. The great house falls into disrepair. Tenants refuse to stay, claiming they hear children crying in the night, see shadows with an axe by the gate. Some say the land itself soured when Benjamin struck, that no harvest will ever grow rich there again. So Benjamin becomes not just man, not just fugitive, but curse, a name spoken to frighten, to inspire, to remind. And on each Christmas Eve, as snow falls over Tennessee, some whisper it still. Benjamin walked that night. Benjamin cut the chain. Benjamin remembered every lash. And silence follows, because they know the story is not just history, it is prophecy. Years turn. The Whitfield graves sink into the soil, their names softened by rain, their stones chipped by wind. The house collapses room by room, windows broken, roof caved in, stair rails eaten by rot. By the 1870s, travelers passing through Tennessee point and whisper, that's the place, the cursed place. Benjamin's name never fades. In some mouths it curdles like poison. Elderly planters, bent with age, hiss his name when warning their sons. Don't let your slaves forget their place. Remember Benjamin. He cut his mistress on Christmas Eve. They spit into the fire, but their eyes dart to the window, as though expecting his shadow still. In others, his name is seed and shelter. Freedmen standing tall in Reconstruction speak it as legacy. One man struck before freedom came. One man carried our rage before we could carry our rights. His story is told on porches, in sermons, in whispered recollections. They don't agree on the details. Some say he escaped north and lived free till old age. Some say he died in the woods that same winter, bones hidden under roots, but the truth buried deeper. Some even insist he was captured and hanged, his death scrubbed from record to protect the guilty. But it does not matter, because Benjamin's story is not about truth, it is about memory. Memory that clings sharper than iron, heavier than chains. Memory that proves even silence can break, even obedience can burn away. Children born long after the Civil War still hear his name. In Nashville, a teacher in 1890 tells her pupils, "Benjamin rose against his master. Do not forget." In Memphis, an old ex-slave tells a Union veteran, "We had one of our own before you came. His name was Benjamin." The legend grows wider than the land. Abolitionist papers preserve fragments, tucked between stories of Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner. Historians argue, searching for records, some dismissing it as fable, others swearing the Whitfield massacre was real. But while they debate, the story lives on in voices, because the enslaved needed Benjamin. The freed remembered him. The oppressed carried him. Christmas becomes double-edged in Tennessee. For some, bells ringing carry not just joy but blood's echo. Families tell children, "Sleep well, but know long ago Christmas was painted red." And in the quarters, even decades later, old voices murmur, "Christmas is when Benjamin walked." He did not cry. He did not beg. He only cut. And that image, axe raised in the dark, firelight flashing, names whispered with each stroke, burns into the memory of a people. By the 20th century, his name surfaces in fragments. Folklorists gather stories, writing of a slave in Tennessee who killed a whole family. Bluesmen weave verses of Benjamin walking by night. In Harlem, poets mention him as symbol of wrath chained too long. The South still curses him. The North still wonders. But everywhere his name flickers like coal under ash. Even today, when archives are opened, when plantation records are sifted, his story rises again. Historians stumble across the Whitfield tragedy. They note the date, Christmas Eve, 1857. They note the missing man, Benjamin, and they feel the weight of silence in between. Because what matters is not the axe or the blood or the grave. What matters is what it meant. Benjamin was proof. Proof that terror cuts both ways. Proof that silence is not forever. Proof that even on holy nights, chains can shatter in crimson. For masters, he became nightmare. For slaves, he became prayer. For history, he became warning. And for us now, looking back through smoke and blood, Benjamin is memory. The memory, heavy, unflinching, unfinished. The Whitfield plantation stands no more. Grass covers the earth. Trees root where the parlor once glittered. Birds sing where children once cried. And under that soil, if you listen close, perhaps you still hear the echo of an axe. Benjamin is gone. But the story remains. It remains because blood leaves stains no rain can wash. It remains because silence remembers what words forget. It remains because history is not just written, it is carried. And so when you hear the bells of Christmas, when you see the snow fall quiet on the fields, when you light candles and gather with family, remember, there was a night when one man chose fire instead of prayer. One man chose vengeance instead of chains. This is why the story endures. Not because it is comfortable, but because it is true. If Benjamin's name still burns, it is because chains still echo. If his shadow still walks, it is because justice is never finished. And if his story shakes you, it is because silence too long held always breaks in fire and blood. This was the story of Benjamin of Tennessee. Remember him, tell his name, carry the chain he broke. And before you go, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the stories history tried to bury.